I transferred from the University of Massachusetts in Boston to the University of Massachusetts in Amherst so that I could minor in Buddhist studies at Smith College and study psychology and partake in what was called the 5-college program. So I go out to Amherst, and I was one of 10 children, large Irish Catholic family, very competitive, played sports, a lot of jousting around the family table, close-knit. And I get to the dorm, and I'm living in a dorm with thousands of students, and I'm there for 5 days, and I can't sleep. And my hands are sweating, and I'm having panic attacks. And I didn't even know what was happening. All I knew is I don't feel good. This doesn't feel good. So I went to the student infirmary, and they said, well, I think you should come back on Monday and have an appointment and have an intake to have some counseling. So the young woman who did the intake with me, she said, well, I'm going to give you 2 choices. You can either meet with a young 28-year-old psychologist who has just spent the last 2 years in Asia studying meditation, or you can meet with our 65-year-old psychiatrist who will give you medication. Now, I was probably one of the few students in the 60s who said no to free drugs. So I had heard about meditation because I was involved in the music business, playing in a band as an adolescent. And I heard that the Beatles and even the Beach Boys here from Southern California went off with the Maharishi to study meditation. And medication sounded like, whoa, that's really scary. So I said, I'll take the meditation. And so I was enrolled with this young psychologist. He sat on the floor. He had pillows. It was very, very, very Asian and Eastern. And we meditated. And then that began really my career in the aspect of mindfulness. Was through treating my own anxiety. And I noticed in the course of 2 or 3 weeks that scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being like you can't sleep and you're sweating all the time, it went down to about 3 or 4. And I was immediately taken in by that. I said, I can change my own brain physiology. And mindfulness is a method that we're now studying at UCLA, at the Seminole Institute, at the Mark Center, Mindfulness Awareness Research Center at UCLA. Dr. Richard Davison, someone that we were studying meditation in Amherst, him and Daniel Goleman, the author that wrote Emotional Intelligence and Emotional Intelligence in the Workplace. Him and Richard Davison were researching meditation at Harvard to the School of Social Divinity, and we would kind of go back and forth and trade notes. Mindfulness is also being studied by Richard Davison out at the University of Madison, Wisconsin. There's a woman called Dr. Sarah Lazar. She's studying mindfulness and using PET scans and CAT scans to actually study what happens with the brain. So I'm going to give you just a few pieces of neuroscience and then segue back into some more principles of the mindful leader. When you meditate, what's absolutely phenomenally interesting is there are 3 very essential parts of your brain that are important to know about. One is in the very center of your brain. It's called the amygdala, and it's like a small walnut. And it's really the center. It's like your thumb. So if you could think of, if you roll your thumb like this and you put your fingers on top, the amygdala is the thumb part in the center of your brain. And these 2 fingers here on the left are your left prefrontal cortex. And these 2 fingers on the right are your right prefrontal cortex. Optimistic, hopeful, visionary, and imaginative leaders, artists, creators, and individuals. Primarily, when we do a CAT scan or a PET scan on the brain, where you see most of the brain lighting up is in the left prefrontal cortex. And individuals who tend to be more see the glass half empty, depressive, pessimistic, it's all going to hell in a handbasket. You know, you say, how are things going? What do you think about the future of the world? Oh, gee, terrible, you know. It's like your Jewish grandmother. Oh, God, it's all going downhill. The right prefrontal cortex, interestingly enough, though, has an aspect in it where there are neural pathways that are responsible for thinking outside of the box. So what we've discovered, which is absolutely mesmerizing, is that if you take individuals who are functioning from a low level to a medium level of depression, and they're primarily located in their right prefrontal cortex, that within 4 to 8 weeks, not putting in the cognitive behavioral therapy or the medication yet, just teaching them mindfulness, is that they will switch in the neuronal pathways that lock in being pessimistic, moody, depressive, will open up neuronal pathways into the left prefrontal cortex, which is about optimism. Yep, all right. So this doctor who I met, I was speaking at UCLA at the Mindfulness conference, Dr. Sarah Lazar, she decided to study Tibetan lamas who had been practicing mindfulness for over 30 years. And she got a unique idea to also study fraternity boys at MIT who had no interest in meditation, and you can just imagine what they were interested in, right? And she found in a group of 7, over a course of 8 weeks of training them in mindfulness, and this is a phenomenal outcome, that 3 of the 7, beer drinking, partying, girl seeking, were able to attain the same level of heightened and refined concentration in what we call a first level of samadhi or enlightened awareness as the Tibetan lamas who had been practicing for 30 years. Now, what that means for us as leaders is it means that we don't have to go off, and I'm not discouraging, of course, if anybody wants to go off to a monastery or go around Asia. I've done it most of my life, and it's a thrilling experience. And I'm sure Dave has also done it, trek in Nepal and Bhutan and climb mountains. It's an extraordinary experience. But what it means is that in your own home, you can sit either on a meditation cushion or in a chair, or if you have pain, you can lay down if need be. And you can turn on the third important part of the brain, which is called the mid-insula. And it's right in front of the amygdala. And so Dr. Lazar discovered that as you practice mindfulness meditation, the old view of the mind and of development, particularly from adolescence into old age, was that we were hardwired. We had a certain amount of brain cells, and the bad news, as we get older and older, the old view was we fade to black, and the brain cells get less and less and less and less. With mindfulness meditation and the new research on neuroscience, what we're discovering is the total opposite of that. That as you practice mindfulness meditation, or you engage, and so I'm going to open it up so that you don't think that's like the only thing, but if you engage in activities that create stimulation, like if you're 60 years old and you learn to play tennis, or you get involved in chess, or you go to a brain gym, they call them mind-brain gyms, or you start to get immersed in studying computer science, that you open up new neuronal pathways. And it's not thousands of brain cells that we are capable of producing, but millions. And over time, Dr. Lazar discovered that in the mid-insula, by practicing mindfulness meditation and or some other activities of complexity, the mid-insula gets thicker. And what that means is that we are producing millions and millions of new brain cells, so that as we age, we no longer have to adopt that old view that older people fade to black. For example, I had the wonderful opportunity of meeting Joseph Campbell, the mythologist, many, many times. Right towards the very end of his life at Esalen, he was teaching a seminar in one room. I was teaching a seminar in another room. We were sitting and talking, and he remembered he had met me as a very young man at Amherst. And he was 84, and he was sharp as a tack. He was as sharp as me and probably sharper. And he remembered where we met. He remembered what we talked about. And I was very taken by that. So I said, you know, Joe, I know that you've never been a long-term meditator as I am. What do you do to stay sharp? And he said, I do things that create complexity. I engage my brain, my mind. I play chess. I do crossword puzzles. I do anything that stimulates my brain. So the wise leader, okay, coming all the way full circle back, a wise leader is somebody who creates a sense of excitement, who creates a sense of opportunity, who has a view that when leading or managing people, it's like a wonderful gardener who farms and tends to and cultivates and grows people. So the mindful wise leader is somebody that is not only interested in the bottom line, but is also interested in the growth and the transformation of people in a mindful and a heart-oriented way. How many minutes do I have? 10? Okay. So with 10 minutes, I think what I'm going to do is do something experiential with you so that we at least have 5 minutes of that, and then try to get through a few of the Zen theorems that I've cultivated, okay? And then give you some time for question and answers. So if everybody could just sit up straight, put your feet on the floor, let go of anything that you're writing or holding with, and then just take the palms of your hands and put them either palms facing down, thumb and first finger together, or palms facing upward. And all we're going to do is a very simple mindfulness meditation. And if you already have a spiritual discipline, or you come from another spiritual orientation, this will not create any conflict with whatever you do practice. For example, let's say you do transcendental meditation. Simply close your eyes now and let your eyelids look down. And if anyone is uncomfortable about closing their eyes, you can keep your eyes open and look down on the floor. So have your eyes focus at the tip of your nose, either open or closed. It's better closed, but you can do it open. And then just find